They say blood is thicker than water, but what they don't tell you is that sometimes the very blood that should protect you is the poison that nearly destroys you. My name is Maya Johnson, and for 12 years, I thought I had escaped the woman who gave birth to me but never truly became my mother. I was wrong. She came back, and with her return came secrets that would shake the very foundation of the life I had so carefully built. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday in September. I was sitting at my small kitchen table in my modest but clean apartment, reviewing case files for the children I worked with at the Department of Social Services. The irony wasn't lost on me that I spent my days protecting other people's children when no one had been there to protect me as a child. At 28, I had built what I considered a good life. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I had David, my patient boyfriend of 3 years who understood my need for stability and routine. I had my work helping kids navigate the foster system I knew so well. And I had Grace, my 72-year-old neighbor who had become more of a mother to me than the woman who actually gave birth to me. The knock at my door came at exactly 7:47 a.m. I remember the time because I was always precise about my morning routine. Coffee at 7:15, case review at 7:30, out the door by 800. The knock disrupted everything. I wasn't expecting anyone. David had his own key and would have called first. Grace always knocked 3 times in a rhythm we'd established. This was different, urgent, demanding. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I hadn't laid eyes on in 12 years. Patricia Johnson, my mother. She looked older, of course, but she still carried herself with that familiar mixture of desperation and entitlement that had defined my childhood. Her dark hair was streaked with gray now, pulled back in a messy bun. She wore a wrinkled dress that had seen better days, and she was shifting from foot to foot the way she always did when she needed something. My heart started racing, and for a moment, I was 15 again, that scared girl who never knew if she was coming home to an empty apartment or to chaos. I almost didn't open the door. I could have pretended I wasn't home, waited for her to leave. But something about the way she was standing there, looking around nervously, made me curious despite myself. "Hello, Maya." Her voice was exactly the same, that particular combination of sweetness and manipulation that had confused me as a child. Patricia. I didn't call her mom. I hadn't earned the right to that title 12 years ago when she dropped me off at my first foster home and promised she'd be back in just a few weeks to get her life together. "Can I come in, please? I know this is unexpected, but I really need to talk to you." Every instinct I had developed as a social worker, every boundary I had learned to set, screamed at me to say no. But there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before, genuine fear. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. She moved through my small living space like she was taking inventory, noting my second-hand furniture, my carefully tended plants, the few photos I had of David and Grace, and some of the kids I'd helped over the years. "You've done well for yourself," she said, and I could hear the surprise in her voice. Like she hadn't expected me to survive without her, much less thrive. "What do you want, Patricia?" She sat down on my couch without being invited, and suddenly I was flooded with memories of her doing the same thing when I was a child, making herself comfortable in spaces that weren't hers, taking up room in ways that felt intrusive. "I'm sick, Maya." The words hung in the air between us. I felt that familiar tug of guilt and responsibility that she had always been so good at triggering, but I had learned to recognize it for what it was. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully. "But I don't understand why you're here. I need help. Financial help, and maybe a place to stay for a while, just until I get back on my feet." There it was. The real reason for her sudden appearance in my life, not remorse, not a desire to make amends, not even curiosity about how I had turned out. She needed something. "You abandoned me when I was 15 years old," I said quietly. "You left me in the system with no explanation, no contact. For 12 years, Patricia. 12 years of birthdays, holidays, graduations, all the moments when a daughter might need her mother. And now you show up because you need something from me." Her face crumpled in a way that would have devastated 15-year-old Maya. But 28-year-old Maya had learned to see the performance for what it was. "I was protecting you," she said, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I was in a bad place, Maya. Drugs, bad relationships. I thought you'd be better off without me. I was better off without you," I said, the truth of it surprising even me with its clarity. "But that's not the point. The point is that you don't get to disappear from someone's life and then reappear when it's convenient for you. Please, Maya. I know I hurt you. I know I wasn't the mother you deserved. But I'm trying to make things right now. I've been clean for 2 years. I've been working, trying to get my life together. But this illness, I can't handle it alone. Something in her tone made me look closer at her. She did look unwell, thinner than I remembered, with a grayish pallor to her skin, but I had learned not to trust my impulses when it came to Patricia Johnson. What kind of illness? I asked. Cancer, she said quietly. Breast cancer, stage 2. I'm supposed to start treatment next week, but I lost my job and my insurance is a mess, and I don't have anywhere stable to stay during recovery. The word cancer hit me like a physical blow. Whatever else Patricia was, whatever she had done to me, she was still the only family I had in the world. At least, the only family I knew about. Have you told anyone else about this? Do you have any other support? She shook her head. There's no one else, Maya. You're all I have. The manipulation in that statement was obvious, but it also contained a grain of truth that made my chest tight. I was all she had, and despite everything, she was all I had too. I need time to think about this, I said finally. Of course, I understand. I'm staying at a motel on 5th Street, the Starlight Inn, room 23. It's not much, but she trailed off, and for a moment, she looked genuinely vulnerable in a way that reminded me of the few good memories I had of her from early childhood. After she left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at my case files but not seeing them. My carefully ordered world had been turned upside down in the space of 20 minutes. I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years and spent the day walking around the neighborhood, trying to process what had just happened. Eventually, I found myself at Grace's door. Grace Williams had lived next door to me for 3 years, and in that time, she had become the steady, nurturing presence I had never had growing up. She was a retired teacher who had never had children of her own, and somehow we had found each other and filled gaps in each other's lives. "Child, you look like you've seen a ghost," Grace said when she opened the door. "I have," I said. "My mother showed up this morning." Grace's expression immediately grew serious. She knew my history, knew about the abandonment and the foster care years. She had been the one to help me understand that I wasn't responsible for my mother's choices, that I could build a good life despite the foundation I had been given. "Come in, honey. Tell me everything." We sat in Grace's cozy living room, surrounded by her plants and the smell of the cinnamon candles she always burned, and I told her about Patricia's visit. Grace listened without judgment, asking questions that helped me think through the situation more clearly. "What does your gut tell you?" Grace asked when I finished. "That this is a trap," I said immediately. "That she'll take whatever help I give her, and then disappear again when it suits her, leaving me to pick up the pieces. But what if she's really sick? What if she really is trying to change? What if this is my only chance to have a relationship with my mother?" Grace reached over and took my hand. "Maya, you've worked so hard to build healthy boundaries. You've learned to recognize manipulation. You've created a life that brings you peace. Don't let guilt make you forget all of that. So you think I shouldn't help her? I think you should listen to the wisdom you've gained from your work, from your therapy, from your own healing journey. What would you tell one of your clients if they came to you with this situation?" I knew what I would tell them. I would tell them that they didn't owe their abuser anything, just because that person was family. I would tell them that their first responsibility was to protect their own well-being. I would tell them that true change required more than just words and tears. But knowing what I should do and being able to do it were two different things. That evening, David came over with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. He could tell something was wrong the moment he saw me. "What's going on?" he asked, setting the food aside and pulling me into his arms. David was the kind of man I never thought I would find patient, consistent, emotionally available. He had been there through my worst days of processing my childhood trauma, and he had never once made me feel like I was too much or too damaged. I told him about Patricia's visit, and I watched his face go through a series of expressions: surprise, concern, and finally, protectiveness. "What are you thinking?" he asked carefully. "I don't know. Part of me wants to help her. Part of me wants to run as far away as possible. Part of me is curious about whether she's really changed. And part of me is terrified that if I let her back into my life, she'll destroy everything I've built." "All of those feelings make sense," David said. "This is an impossible situation, Maya. There's no right answer. But there are better and worse choices," I said. "And I need to figure out which is which." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I kept thinking about the work I did with children who had been abandoned or abused by their parents. I had seen what happened when kids clung to hope for parents who would never change, and I had also seen the healing that could happen when someone was able to forgive and move forward. But I had also learned that forgiveness didn't mean trust, and it definitely didn't mean putting yourself back in harm's way. Around 3 a.m., I made a decision. I would help Patricia, but on my terms, with boundaries, with conditions, and with my eyes wide open. The next morning I drove to the Starlight Inn. The motel was exactly what I had expected, run down, depressing, the kind of place where people stayed when they had no other options. It reminded me uncomfortably of some of the places Patricia and I had lived when I was younger. I knocked on the door of room 23, and when Patricia opened it, I could see relief flood across her face.
Maya!
I wasn't sure you'd come. I've thought about what you said, I told her, and I'm willing to help you, but I have conditions. She nodded eagerly, gesturing for me to come into the small, dimly lit room. First, I said, you'll need to provide me with documentation about your diagnosis and treatment plan. I want to talk to your doctors. Her face flickered with something annoyance. Surprise? But she recovered quickly. Of course, that makes sense. Second, I'll help with medical expenses and finding you a place to stay during treatment, but I won't have you living with me. We'll find you a place nearby. Okay, she said, though I could hear the disappointment in her voice. Third, we're going to do this slowly. I'm not ready to just jump back into having you in my life. We'll have regular check-ins, structured visits, and if at any point I feel like you're manipulating me or being dishonest, I'm done. Maya, I understand. I know I have to earn your trust back. And finally, I said, I want complete honesty from you about the past. No more lies, no more excuses. If we're going to try to have any kind of relationship, it has to be built on truth. Something shifted in her expression when I said that, a flicker of what looked like panic. But again, she recovered quickly. Of course, I owe you that much. As I drove home from the motel, I felt a mixture of anxiety and something that might have been hope. Maybe Patricia really had changed. Maybe this could be the beginning of the relationship I had always wanted with my mother. I had no idea that within a week, I would discover that everything she had told me was a lie, and that the truth about my past and my future was far more complicated than I had ever imagined. The first red flag came 3 days later. I had arranged to meet Patricia at the oncology office she claimed to be receiving treatment from. Dr. Martinez's office was in the medical complex downtown, and I had taken a half-day off work to accompany her to what she said was a consultation about her treatment plan. When we arrived at the reception desk, the young woman behind the counter looked confused when Patricia gave her name. I'm sorry, I don't see you in our system, the receptionist said, typing on her computer. Could you spell your last name again? Johnson. J-O-8-S-O-N. Patricia Johnson? More typing, more confused frowning. I'm really sorry, but I don't have any record of a Patricia Johnson as a patient here. Are you sure you have the right office? I watched Patricia's face carefully. That familiar flush of panic crossed her features, the same look she used to get when I was a child, and she was caught in a lie about why we had to move again, or why the electricity was turned off. Oh, she said quickly. I must have gotten confused. I've been to so many doctors lately. This must be Dr. Rodriguez's office I was thinking of. But I had already seen enough. The way she avoided my eyes, the slight tremor in her voice, the too quick recovery, all the signs I had learned to recognize in my work with families in crisis. We left the medical building in silence. When we got to my car, I turned to face her. There is no cancer, is there? For a moment, she tried to maintain the act. Maya, I don't know what you're talking about. I just got the offices confused. Stop. My voice was sharper than I intended. Just stop lying to me. The mask finally dropped. Her shoulders sagged, and for the first time since she'd appeared at my door, she looked genuinely ashamed. How did you know? Because I've spent the last 10 years working with people who lie when they're desperate, and because you're using the same tactics you used when I was a kid. We sat in the parking lot for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Patricia spoke. I'm not sick. At least, not the way I said. But Maya, I really am in trouble. I owe some people money. Bad people. They've been calling, showing up at my place. I didn't know where else to go. So you decided to lie to me about having cancer. I knew you wouldn't help me otherwise. You've built this perfect life, and I'm just the screw-up mother who abandoned you. Why would you care if I was in trouble because of my own mistakes? There was truth in that, painful as it was to admit. I probably wouldn't have helped her if she had just shown up asking for money to pay off debts, but the fact that she knew that and chose manipulation instead of honesty told me everything I needed to know about whether she had really changed. Who do you owe money to, and how much? It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it. If you want my help with anything, ever, you need to tell me the whole truth right now. She was quiet for so long I thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. His name is Marcus. He was my boyfriend until a few months ago. He got me into some business ventures that didn't work out. Loans from people who don't exactly go through banks, if you know what I mean. How much do you owe? $15,000. The number hit me like a punch to the stomach. It might as well have been 15 million for someone in my position. Patricia, I'm a social worker. I don't have that kind of money. I know. But maybe you could help me figure out another way. Maybe take out a loan or, no. The word came out harder than I intended. I'm not going into debt to clean up your mess. And I'm not going to be manipulated into it with fake cancer stories. Maya, please. You don't understand what these people are like. Then explain it to me. But no more lies. So she did. And with each detail, the picture became clearer and more disturbing. Patricia hadn't just gotten involved with a bad boyfriend. She had gotten mixed up with people involved in identity theft and credit card fraud. The business ventures she mentioned were schemes that had targeted elderly people, convincing them to give up their personal information for fake prizes and investments. You were stealing from old people. I couldn't keep the disgust out of my voice. It wasn't supposed to be like that. Marcus said it was just marketing, helping people find better investment opportunities. I didn't know about the other stuff until it was too late. And now you owe money to criminals because your con game fell apart. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I started the car, I'm taking you back to your motel, and then I need time to think. The drive back to the Starlight Inn was silent except for Patricia's occasional sniffles. When I dropped her off, she tried one more time to get me to promise I would help her. Maya, I know I messed up, I know I shouldn't have lied. But I'm still your mother. No, I said quietly. A mother is someone who protects their child, who puts their child's well-being first. You've never done that. Not when I was 15, and not now. That evening, I sat in Grace's kitchen while she made tea and listened to the whole story. You did the right thing, Grace said when I finished. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. But what if those people really are dangerous? What if something happens to her? Maya, honey, that's not your responsibility. You didn't create this situation, and you can't fix it. I knew Grace was right, but the guilt was still there, gnawing at me. Despite everything Patricia had done, she was still the only biological family I had. The thought of something happening to her because I refused to help made me feel sick. That night, David found me on my couch, staring at my laptop screen, researching debt consolidation loans. Please tell me you're not thinking about taking out a loan for her, he said gently. I don't know what I'm thinking, I admitted. I know she lied. I know she manipulated me. I know she's involved in something terrible. But David, what if something happens to her? He sat down next to me and closed the laptop. Maya, you've told me about your work with families. What would happen if one of your clients came to you and said their abusive parent was in trouble and asking for money? I would tell them it wasn't their responsibility to fix their parents' problems. I said automatically, and if they said they felt guilty about not helping, I would tell them that guilt is a weapon abusers use to maintain control, even from a distance. And if they were worried something bad might happen to their parent, I sighed. I would tell them that adults are responsible for the consequences of their own choices. So why is it different when it's you? It was a fair question and one I couldn't answer. Or maybe I could answer it, but I didn't want to face the truth. The truth was that part of me still hoped that Patricia could change, that we could have the mother-daughter relationship I had always wanted. The truth was that despite all my therapy and professional training, I was still that 15-year-old girl who had been left behind, still hoping her mother would come back and love her the way she needed to be loved. Because I'm still hoping she'll choose me, I said finally. I'm still hoping that if I'm good enough, helpful enough, understanding enough, she'll finally be the mother I need her to be. David pulled me into his arms. Maya, she's already shown you who she is. Multiple times. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. The next morning, I made my decision. I called Patricia and told her I wouldn't be giving her money, but I would help her in other ways. I would help her find resources for people in debt, connect her with legal aid if needed, even help her find temporary housing if she was really in danger. But I won't be lied to again, I told her. And I won't be manipulated. If you want my help, it has to be on my terms, with complete honesty. She agreed, but I could hear the disappointment in her voice. It was the same tone she had used when I was a child and didn't have whatever she needed from me at the moment. Over the next few days, I threw myself into researching resources for Patricia. I found contact information for debt counseling services, legal aid organizations, and even a few shelters for people fleeing dangerous situations. I compiled everything into a folder and arranged to meet her at a coffee shop near the motel. But when I arrived at the appointed time, she wasn't there. I waited for 30 minutes before calling her cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. I drove to the Starlight Inn and knocked on the door of room 23. No answer. The desk clerk, a tired-looking man with kind eyes, recognized me from my previous visits. She checked out yesterday morning, he told me. Left in a hurry, barely took anything with her. I felt a familiar hollow sensation in my chest. She had done it again. Disappeared without explanation, without even a goodbye. But this time, instead of the devastation I had felt at 15, I felt something different. Relief. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in days. Patricia had made her choice, and in doing so, she had freed me from the burden of trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. That evening, I was making dinner when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, is this Maya Johnson? The voice was young, female, uncertain. Yes, who is this? My name is Destiny. Destiny Williams. I think Patricia Johnson is my mother too. The world tilted sideways. I sat down hard on my kitchen chair. What did you say? I've been looking for her for months. She left when I was 16, just like she left you. But I found some paperwork with your name on it, and I tracked you down. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to find her. My little brother is in foster care, and I'm trying to get custody of him, but I need her to sign some papers. Your little brother? Yeah, Jamal. He's only 8. She left him too about 6 months ago. I've been taking care of him when I can, but the state took him when I couldn't prove I had stable housing. I couldn't breathe. Patricia had other children. Had abandoned other children. Destiny, where are you now? I'm in Springfield, about 2 hours from you. I know this is crazy, calling you out of nowhere, but I didn't know what else to do. I'm only 19 and I'm trying to keep my family together, but I don't know how. Can you come here? Tomorrow. I think we need to talk in person. There was a pause, then a shaky, yes. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at my phone. Patricia hadn't just abandoned me 12 years ago. She had gone on to have more children, and she had abandoned them too. But this time she had left behind a sister I never knew I had, and an 8-year-old boy who needed help. This time, there was something I could actually do. Destiny Williams arrived at my apartment the next evening looking like a younger, more fragile version of myself. She had the same dark eyes as Patricia, but where our mother's eyes held manipulation and desperation, Destiny's held determination mixed with exhaustion that no 19-year-old should carry. She was small and thin, wearing clothes that had seen better days but were clean and carefully maintained. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried a worn backpack that looked like it held everything she owned. "Thank you for letting me come," she said quietly when I opened the door. "I wasn't sure you would want to meet me." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "Are you hungry? I made extra dinner just in case." The relief that crossed her face told me she probably hadn't eaten much recently. As we sat at my small dining table eating the chicken and rice I had prepared, I studied Destiny's face, looking for traces of the family I had never known I had. "Tell me about Jamal," I said gently. Her whole demeanor changed when I mentioned her brother's name. The wariness lifted from her features, replaced by fierce protectiveness. "He's the sweetest kid you've ever met," she said, pulling out her phone to show me photos. "Smart as anything, loves to read, makes up these elaborate stories about superheroes. He wants to be a teacher when he grows up." The photos showed a beautiful little boy with big brown eyes and a gap-toothed grin. In every picture, he was either reading a book or hugging Destiny. "He looks like you," I said. "Everyone says that. We have different dads, but we've always been close. When Patricia would disappear for days at a time, I was the one who took care of him. Made sure he got to school, helped him with homework, made him meals." "When did she leave for good?" Destiny's face darkened. "About 6 months ago. She had been getting worse, staying out for longer periods, bringing home different men, getting involved in things that scared me. One morning I woke up and she was just gone. Left a note saying she had to go away for a while, and that I should figure things out." "What did you do?" "I tried to keep us together. I was working part-time at a grocery store, and I had graduated high school early, so I thought maybe I could make it work. But our landlord found out Patricia was gone and kicked us out. I found a room to rent, but it was barely big enough for me, and the landlord said no kids. So Jamal went into the system. I thought it would just be temporary. I thought if I could find a better place, prove I had stable income, they would let me take him. But it's been 4 months now, and every time I think I'm close to getting him back, something else goes wrong. I could hear the frustration and heartbreak in her voice. At 19, she was trying to do what Patricia had never been able to do, put her child's needs first. What kind of paperwork do you need Patricia to sign? Custody papers. The lawyer I talked to said that since she never legally gave up her parental rights, I need her permission to become Jamal's guardian. Or, she hesitated. Or what? Or I need to prove she abandoned him, but that requires documentation, witnesses, a whole legal process that could take months or years. Jamal doesn't have that kind of time. What do you mean? Destiny's eyes filled with tears. His foster family is nice, but they're getting older, and they can't handle him long term. His caseworker told me they're looking at moving him to a group home if I can't get custody soon. Maya, he's 8 years old. He's already lost his mother and had to leave me. I can't let him go to a group home. I felt a familiar rage building in my chest, not at Destiny or Jamal, but at Patricia. How many children was she going to damage before she was done? Have you had any contact with Patricia since she left? She called me once, about 2 months ago, just to ask if I had any money I could send her. When I told her about Jamal being in foster care, she said it was probably for the best since I was too young to be raising a kid anyway. The callousness of that statement took my breath away. I had experienced Patricia's selfishness firsthand, but hearing about her dismissing an 8-year-old's need for family was a new level of heartlessness. Destiny, I need to tell you something about Patricia's recent visit to me. I told her everything, the fake cancer diagnosis, the criminal activity, the money she owed to dangerous people, her sudden disappearance when I wouldn't give her what she wanted. Destiny listened without much surprise, occasionally nodding as if the story confirmed things she already suspected. That sounds like her, she said sadly when I finished. Always a new crisis, always someone else's fault, always looking for someone else to fix it. How long has she been like this? As long as I can remember. When I was little, I thought all moms were like that. It wasn't until I got to school and saw how other kids' parents acted that I realized ours was different. I felt a pang of recognition. I remembered that same realization, that moment when you understand that your normal isn't actually normal at all. Destiny, I want to help you get custody of Jamal. Her eyes widened. Really? But you don't even know us. You're my sister? I said, the words feeling strange but right in my mouth. And Jamal is my brother. We're family, and family takes care of each other. For the first time since she had arrived, Destiny broke down completely. All the strength and determination she had been holding on to crumbled, and she sobbed at my kitchen table like the scared, overwhelmed teenager she really was. I got up and put my arms around her, and she felt so small and fragile that it broke my heart. But there was also something healing about it for both of us, I think. Neither of us had ever had the experience of being comforted by family when we needed it most. We're going to figure this out, I told her. I work in the system. I know how it works, and I know people who can help us. Over the next 2 hours, Destiny told me more about her and Jamal's life. Their father, Jamal's father, had never been in the picture. Destiny's father had died when she was 12, which was around the time Patricia's behavior had gotten significantly worse. I think losing him broke something in her, Destiny said. Not that she was ever great, but after Dad died, she just gave up on trying to be a parent. What was he like? Your father? Kind, patient. He worked construction, and he used to take me to job sites sometimes on weekends. He taught me how to use tools, how to fix things. He always said that if you could fix things, you'd never be helpless. I felt a stab of envy. Destiny had at least had one parent who loved her, even if it was only for 12 years. But then I felt guilty for the envy she had lost him, and that loss had clearly shaped the rest of her childhood. Do you think Patricia is capable of change? I asked. Destiny was quiet for a long moment. I used to think so. Every time she would come back after disappearing, every time she would cry and promise to do better, I believed her. But Maya, she's had so many chances to choose her children, and she never has. I don't think she knows how. That night, Destiny slept on my couch, and I lay awake planning. I had some vacation time saved up, and I decided to use it to help Destiny navigate the legal system. I also wanted to meet Jamal and assess his situation firsthand. The next morning, I called my supervisor and requested emergency leave to deal with a family situation. Sarah Martinez had been my boss for 3 years, and she knew about my background in foster care. "Take whatever time you need," she said when I explained the situation. "And Maya, if you need any resources or connections in Springfield, let me know. We work with agencies there sometimes." I also called Grace to let her know what was happening. She immediately offered to help however she could. "Bring them both here for dinner tomorrow night," she said. "That boy needs to know he has family who cares about him." David's reaction was more complicated. He was supportive, but I could see the concern in his eyes. "Maya, I think what you're doing is wonderful," he said. "But are you sure you're ready for this? Trying to get custody of a child is a huge responsibility. And if Patricia is really involved with dangerous people, bringing her family into your life might not be safe." He was right to be concerned, and I appreciated that he was thinking about my well-being. But I also knew that this was something I had to do. "David, I spent my entire childhood wishing someone would choose me, would fight for me, would put my needs first. I can't let Jamal go through what I went through, not when I have the power to prevent it. And what about us? What about our relationship, our plans?" It was a fair question. David and I had been talking about moving in together, maybe getting engaged in the next year or two. Taking on the responsibility of helping raise an 8-year-old would change everything. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I can't ask you to sign up for something you didn't choose, but I can't abandon my brother either. I'm not asking you to abandon him. I'm just asking you to think about what this means for your life, for our life together." I spent the day in Springfield with Destiny, meeting with lawyers and social workers, visiting Jamal at his foster home, and beginning the process of understanding what it would take to get him placed with family. Jamal was everything Destiny had described and more. He was small for his age, with intelligent eyes that seemed too old for his face. When Destiny introduced me as his sister, he studied me carefully before asking, "Are you going to disappear too?" The question hit me like a physical blow. This little boy had already been abandoned by his mother and separated from his sister. Of course he would be wary of trusting another adult who claimed to care about him. "No," I said, kneeling down to his level. "I'm not going anywhere. Destiny and I are working to bring you home." "With Destiny?" "With Destiny." He nodded solemnly, as if filing this information away to analyze later. His foster parents, the Hendersons, were genuinely caring people in their 60s who had been fostering children for over 20 years. But Mrs. Henderson had recently been diagnosed with arthritis, and they were planning to stop fostering within the next few months. "Jamal is a wonderful boy," Mrs. Henderson told me privately. "But he needs stability, and he needs to be with family. We've seen too many children age out of the system without ever finding that. If there's any way for him to be with his sister, that's what's best for him." The legal process was going to be complicated. Since Patricia still had legal custody and hadn't been officially declared unfit, Destiny would need either Patricia's consent or a lengthy court battle to prove abandonment. But I learned something else that day that changed everything. Patricia wasn't just unreachable, she was wanted by the police. The fraud scheme she had been involved in had been exposed, and there were active warrants out for her arrest. If she's arrested and convicted, that would actually make the custody case much simpler. The lawyer explained to us, a parent in prison for felony charges can have their parental rights terminated much more quickly. It was strange to find myself hoping that Patricia would be caught and imprisoned. But for Jamal's sake, that might be the fastest path to getting him the stability he needed. That evening, I returned home to find David packing a bag. "Where are you going?" I asked. "To my brother's place for a few days. I need some time to think about all this." "David, please don't make me choose between you and my family." "I'm not making you choose anything," he said gently. "I'm just trying to figure out if I'm ready for this. Maya, a week ago we were talking about maybe getting a puppy together. Now you're talking about taking custody of a child. That's a big adjustment." He was right, and I knew it. But I also knew that some decisions weren't really decisions at all, they were just recognizing what you had to do. After David left, I called Destiny to update her on everything I had learned. She was staying at a women's shelter in Springfield, trying to save money for an apartment deposit. "Come stay here," I told her. "You shouldn't be in a shelter when you have family." "Maya, I can't impose on you like that." "You're not imposing, you're family. And we need to stick together while we figure this out." 2 days later, Destiny moved into my spare room, and we began what felt like preparing for war. We had legal documents to file, social workers to meet with, and a little boy depending on us to get it right. Grace, true to her word, had us over for dinner and immediately took Destiny under her wing the same way she had taken me. David was still at his brother's place, trying to decide what he could handle. But on Friday evening everything changed again. I was reviewing custody paperwork when my phone rang. Unknown number. Maya Johnson. The voice was official, professional. Yes, this is Detective Rodriguez with the Springfield Police Department. I understand you've been in contact with Patricia Johnson recently. My heart started racing. Yes, she's my mother. Ms. Johnson was arrested this morning on multiple charges of fraud and identity theft. She's asked to speak with you. Are you available to come down to the station? Patricia had been caught. The woman who had spent her entire adult life running from consequences had finally run out of places to hide, and now she wanted to see me. The Springfield Police Department looked exactly like every other government building I had visited in my line of work: fluorescent lights, beige walls, and the particular smell of industrial cleaning supplies mixed with human desperation. But walking through those doors as the daughter of an arrestee instead of a social worker advocating for a client felt completely different. Detective Rodriguez was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical bun. She led me to a small conference room and offered me coffee, which I declined because my hands were already shaking. Your mother was arrested as part of a larger investigation into an identity theft ring, she explained, settling into the chair across from me. We've been tracking this group for months. They targeted elderly people, convincing them to provide personal information for fake investment opportunities and prize winnings. How much money are we talking about? Over $200,000 from victims across 3 states. Your mother wasn't the mastermind, but she was heavily involved. She personally defrauded at least 15 elderly people. The number hit me like a physical blow. Patricia hadn't just made a mistake or gotten in over her head. She had deliberately stolen from vulnerable seniors, people who reminded me of Grace. She's asked to see you specifically, Detective Rodriguez continued. She says she has information that might help with your custody case for her minor son. She knows about that. Apparently she's been keeping tabs on your family's situation. She says she's willing to cooperate with authorities and sign custody papers, but only if she can speak to you first. The manipulation was breathtaking, even by Patricia's standards. She was using her own son's welfare as a bargaining chip from jail. What charges is she facing? Multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. She's looking at 5 to 10 years minimum. 10 years. Jamal would be 18 by the time she got out. He would grow up without ever knowing his mother outside of prison visits. Part of me felt satisfied that Patricia was finally facing consequences for her actions. But another part of me, the part that was still that abandoned 15-year-old, felt a familiar stab of loss. I'll see her, I said. Detective Rodriguez led me to a different room, this one clearly designed for attorney-client meetings. There was a table with 2 chairs, a window reinforced with wire mesh, and cameras in each corner. When Patricia walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit, she looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair was pulled back without any of her usual careful styling, and without makeup she looked older and more fragile. But when she saw me, that familiar manipulative smile appeared. Maya, thank you for coming. Don't, I said before she could continue. Don't thank me, don't tell me how good I look, don't pretend this is some normal family visit. Just tell me what you want. The smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. I want to help you get custody of Jamal. Why? Because he's my son, and I love him. If you loved him, you wouldn't have abandoned him. I was protecting him. The people I owed money to, they were getting dangerous. I thought if I disappeared, they wouldn't go after him or Destiny. So you just left him to figure it out on his own. He's 8 years old, Patricia. I left him with Destiny. I knew she would take care of him. Destiny was 19 and working minimum wage. She couldn't keep him, and now he's been in foster care for 4 months because of your choices. Something flickered across Patricia's face, maybe genuine shame, maybe just annoyance at being challenged. With her, it was always hard to tell. I know I messed up. But I can fix this now. I can sign the custody papers, give Destiny legal guardianship. All I need is for you to help me with something. And there it was. The real reason she wanted to see me. What do you want? I need a character witness for my sentencing hearing. Someone to testify that I'm not a bad person, that I made mistakes because I was desperate, that I deserve a second chance. You want me to lie for you in court? I want you to tell them about the good times we had when you were little, about how I tried to be a good mother. I stared at her across the table, trying to find any trace of the woman who had sung me lullabies when I had nightmares as a small child. But that woman, if she had ever really existed, was long gone. What good times, Patricia, when you left me alone for days at a time starting when I was 10. When you brought home men who scared me. When you moved us every few months because you couldn't pay rent. When you finally abandoned me completely. You turned out fine. You're successful, you have a good life. That proves I didn't damage you permanently. The casual dismissal of my pain was so typical of her that I almost laughed. Almost. I turned out fine despite you, not because of you. I spent years in therapy learning how to trust people, how to have healthy relationships, how to believe I deserved love. You didn't give me any of that. Maya, please. I know I wasn't perfect, but I was young and scared and alone. I did the best I could with what I had. No, you didn't. You did what was easiest for you, what served your interests. You never once put me first, and you never put Destiny or Jamal first either. Patricia's mask was starting to slip. I could see anger building behind her eyes, the same anger I remembered from childhood when she didn't get what she wanted. Fine, she said, her voice getting harder. You don't want to help me, don't help me. But don't expect me to make things easy for you either. What's that supposed to mean? It means that custody case isn't as simple as you think. Destiny is barely an adult with no stable income. Even if I sign the papers, a judge might decide Jamal belongs somewhere else. Somewhere more stable. The threat was clear. If I didn't help her, she would make things difficult for Destiny's custody case. You would use an 8-year-old boy as leverage against me. I would look out for my son's best interests. Maybe he's better off with a nice middle-class family who can provide for him properly. The rage that rose up in me was unlike anything I had ever felt. This woman was willing to destroy her own child's chance at staying with his sister, just to manipulate me into helping her avoid consequences. You don't care about Jamal's best interests, I said, standing up. You care about getting what you want, like always. Sit down, Maya. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Patricia, I've spent my whole life hoping you would change, hoping you would become the mother I needed. But you've shown me who you are over and over again. You're selfish, manipulative, and incapable of putting anyone else's needs before your own. I'm done hoping you'll be different. If you walk out that door, I won't sign those custody papers. Then don't. We'll go to court, prove you abandoned Jamal and get custody anyway. It might take longer, but at least I'll know we did it without compromising our integrity. You'll regret this, Maya. The only thing I regret is wasting so much of my life, hoping you would love me the way I deserved to be loved. I left the police station feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Patricia had finally shown me, beyond any doubt, exactly who she was. The fantasy mother I had been mourning didn't exist and never had. When I got back to my apartment, I found Destiny sitting at my kitchen table with David. They both looked up when I walked in, clearly having been in deep conversation. How did it go? Destiny asked. She won't sign the custody papers unless I testify as a character witness at her sentencing. David's face darkened. She's blackmailing you with her own son's welfare. That's Patricia for you. I sat down at the table with them. But I told her no. We'll have to go the longer route, prove abandonment in court. Maya. Destiny said quietly, what if the judge doesn't think I'm fit to take care of Jamal? What if Patricia's right about me being too young or not having enough money? It was a legitimate concern. Family courts prioritize stability, and a 19-year-old with limited income wasn't always seen as the ideal guardian. Then we'll show them that you're not doing this alone, I said. You have family support now. You have me. David cleared his throat. Actually, you have both of us. I looked at him in surprise. I thought you needed time to think about this. I did think about it. And I realized that watching you fight for your family made me love you even more. If you're willing to take on the responsibility of helping raise Jamal, then I want to be part of that. Relief flooded through me. I hadn't realized how much I had been dreading the possibility of losing David over this situation. Are you sure? This isn't going to be easy. Maya, you've told me how it felt to be abandoned, to feel like no one was willing to fight for you. I can't live with myself knowing I contributed to a little boy feeling that way. Over the next 3 hours, the three of us planned our strategy. David would help with the financial aspects of the custody case, showing that Jamal would have stable housing and support. I would use my professional connections to navigate the legal system. And Destiny would document every aspect of her relationship with Jamal, proving that she had been his primary caretaker for years. There's something else, I said when we had covered the practical aspects. I want to understand more about our family history. Patricia has been lying to me my entire life. I want to know the truth about where we come from." "What do you mean?" Destiny asked. "She told me my father was just some guy she dated briefly. She told me I had no other family. But now I find out I have a sister and brother. What else has she lied about?" "I might be able to help with that," Destiny said slowly. "When I was cleaning out the apartment after she left, I found a box of old papers hidden in her closet. I kept meaning to go through it, but with everything that's been happening." "What kind of papers?" "Birth certificates, old letters, some photographs. I brought the box with me, but I haven't had the courage to look through it yet." We decided to go through the box together. Destiny retrieved it from my spare room, a small cardboard box that looked like it had been moved many times. Inside, we found pieces of a puzzle I never knew existed. There were photographs of Patricia as a young woman, looking happier and healthier than I had ever seen her. There were birth certificates, mine, Destiny's, and Jamal's. There were also birth certificates for two other children I had never heard of, Marcus Johnson and Isabella Johnson. Destiny read, "Maya, do you think we have other siblings?" My hands were shaking as I looked at the dates. Marcus would be 32 now. Isabella would be 26. "Where are they?" I whispered. At the bottom of the box, we found a stack of letters tied with a faded ribbon. They were addressed to Patricia, but the return addresses were from people I didn't recognize. The first letter I opened was dated 15 years ago. It was from someone named Ruth Johnson. "Patricia," the letter began, "I'm begging you to reconsider. Marcus and Isabella have been asking about their mother constantly. They need stability, and they need their family. Please don't let your pride keep you from what's best for them." I looked up at Destiny. "Who is Ruth Johnson?" "I have no idea." The next letter was from 8 years ago, also from Ruth. "Patricia, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing to let you know that Marcus graduated high school with honors and has been accepted to college. Isabella is doing well in middle school and has been asking about you and her siblings. I know you said you wanted a fresh start, but these children deserve to know their family. Please consider letting them know about Maya and Destiny." The pieces were starting to come together, creating a picture that made me feel sick. "Destiny," I said slowly, "I think Patricia didn't just abandon us. I think she abandoned other children too. And someone named Ruth has been raising them." We found more letters, spanning nearly 20 years. Ruth Johnson appeared to be Patricia's mother, in-law of the grandmother I thought I had never had. The most recent letter was from just 2 years ago. "Patricia Marcus is getting married next month. Isabella is starting her senior year of high school. They both still ask about their siblings sometimes, but they've stopped hoping you'll come back. I wanted to let you know that if anything happens to me, they'll need to know about Maya and Destiny. I won't live forever, and they shouldn't be alone in the world when they have family." I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed. Not only did I have the sister and brother I had just met, but there were 2 more siblings out there who might not even know I existed. "Maya," Destiny said quietly, "what if Ruth is still alive? What if Marcus and Isabella are still with her?" I looked at the postmark on the most recent letter. Greenfield, Ohio. There's only one way to find out. The phone number took me 3 tries to dial. My hands kept shaking, and I kept hanging up before it could ring. Destiny sat beside me on my couch, holding my other hand for support, while David made tea in the kitchen, his way of helping when he didn't know what else to do. "What if she doesn't want to talk to me?" I asked Destiny. "What if she thinks I'm lying? Or what if she's angry at Patricia and takes it out on me? Then we'll deal with that," Destiny said simply. "But Maya, what if she's been wondering about us all these years? What if she's been hoping Patricia would bring us to meet her?" I took a deep breath and dialed the number from the return address on the letters. It rang 4 times before a warm, slightly gravelly voice answered. "Hello. Hi, is this Ruth Johnson?" "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name is Maya Johnson. I think I might be your granddaughter." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that I began to wonder if she had hung up. Finally, she spoke, and her voice was thick with emotion. "Maya, Patricia's Maya." "Yes. Oh, honey. Oh, my sweet girl. I have been praying for this call for 28 years. I started crying then, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest. This woman, this stranger, had been praying for me for my entire life, while I had believed I had no family in the world who cared whether I lived or died. "Where are you?" Ruth asked. "Are you safe? Are you okay?" Through my tears, I managed to tell her about finding Destiny, about Jamal in foster care, about Patricia's arrest. I told her about the box of letters and how we had found her address. "Oh, those poor children," she said, and I could hear her crying too. "I tried so hard to get Patricia to bring you to me, but she was so angry, so determined to hurt everyone who tried to help her." Why was she angry? When Marcus and Isabella were little, their father, my son Robert, died in a car accident. Patricia blamed me for encouraging him to work construction like his father. She said it was my fault he was on that job site the day he died. She took the children and disappeared, said she was going to start over somewhere new. But she came back. 2 years later, she showed up on my doorstep in the middle of the night with 2 sick, scared children. She was strung out on drugs and could barely take care of herself. She begged me to take Marcus and Isabella temporarily, just until she could get clean and find work. But she never came back for them. She would show up every few months for a while, promise she was ready to be their mother again, then disappear when it became clear that parenting required actual sacrifice. Eventually, she stopped coming altogether. Marcus was 6 and Isabella was 4 when I officially became their guardian. I felt a familiar rage building toward Patricia, but also something else, gratitude toward this woman who had stepped up when Patricia hadn't. "Ruth, I have a sister here with me. Destiny, she's 19, and she's been trying to take care of Jamal on her own. Put her on the phone, honey." I handed the phone to Destiny, who introduced herself with more composure than I had managed. I watched her face light up as she talked to Ruth, and I realized that for the first time in her life, Destiny was talking to a grandparent who actually wanted to know her. When Destiny handed the phone back to me, Ruth's voice was warm but determined. "Maya, I want you and Destiny to come here. Both of you, bring all the custody paperwork, bring whatever you need. Marcus and Isabella are going to want to meet their sisters, and we're going to figure out how to get that little boy out of foster care." "Ruth, we couldn't impose on you like that." "Honey, you're not imposing, you're family. This is what family does." I had never heard those words before, not from Patricia, not from any of the foster families I had lived with. "This is what family does." "There's something else," Ruth continued. "I've been setting money aside for years, hoping someday Patricia would let me help with you children. I have enough saved to hire a good lawyer for the custody case, enough to help Destiny get stable housing, enough to make sure that little boy gets the life he deserves." I looked at Destiny, whose eyes had gone wide. "Ruth, you don't even know us. I know enough. I know you've been taking care of each other despite Patricia's failures. I know you're fighting for your brother. I know you found each other and chose to be family. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." 2 days later, David drove Destiny and me to Greenfield, Ohio. It was a 3-hour drive through farmland and small towns, and I spent most of it alternating between excitement and terror. What if Ruth didn't like us in person? What if Marcus and Isabella resented us for existing? What if the whole thing was a mistake? But when we pulled into the driveway of a modest 2-story house with a wraparound porch and carefully tended flower gardens, I saw an elderly woman come out the front door, and I knew immediately that I was looking at family. Ruth Johnson was 74 years old, with silver hair pulled back in a bun and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She was wearing a flowered apron over her clothes, and she moved with the careful but determined gait of someone who had lived a full life. But it was her smile that undid me completely. It was warm and genuine and full of love, the kind of smile I had imagined a grandmother might have when I was a child lying in foster beds and dreaming of family. "Maya," she said, opening her arms. "My beautiful granddaughter." I fell into her embrace, and she smelled like vanilla and laundry detergent and something else I couldn't identify, but that felt like safety. "And you must be Destiny," she said, pulling my sister into the hug. "Oh, you look just like your mother did at your age, but with kinder eyes." She ushered us into a house that felt like something from a magazine about family life, comfortable furniture, family photos on every surface, the smell of something delicious cooking in the kitchen. "Marcus and Isabella are coming over for dinner," she said, bustling around making tea and setting out cookies. "They're both so excited to meet you. Marcus lives about 20 minutes away. He's a teacher now, married to a lovely girl named Sarah, and Isabella just finished college, got her nursing degree." I looked at the family photos on Ruth's mantelpiece, trying to absorb the fact that I was looking at siblings I had never known existed. Marcus looked like a male version of Destiny, with the same dark eyes and determined expression. Isabella had Patricia's delicate features but a confidence in her bearing that Patricia had never possessed. "They turned out well," I said. "They're good kids," Ruth said proudly. They had their struggles, especially when they were teenagers and trying to understand why their mother didn't want them. But they worked through it. They built good lives. Did you tell them about Jamal? Ruth's face grew serious. I told them about the custody situation. They're both ready to help however they can. Isabella especially, she works with children at the hospital, and she's furious that her little brother is in foster care when he has family who wants him. When Marcus and Isabella arrived that evening, it was like looking in a funhouse mirror. We all had variations of the same features, the same expressions, the same gestures. But where Patricia's children carried themselves with wariness and hypervigilance, Marcus and Isabella moved with the confidence of people who had been consistently loved and supported. Marcus embraced me like we had known each other our whole lives. I always knew I had more siblings out there, he said. I never stopped hoping we would find each other. Isabella was more cautious, but I could see her studying my face, looking for connections. You have Dad's chin, she said finally. And his stubborn expression. Over dinner, a feast of roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and homemade rolls, I learned about the family I had missed out on. Marcus told stories about high school football, and Ruth driving him to practice every day. Isabella talked about Ruth helping her through nursing school, never missing a graduation or important event. But they also told me about the empty spaces Patricia had left behind. I used to make up stories about you, Isabella admitted. I would imagine that you were living somewhere amazing, having adventures, being happy. It hurt too much to think that you might be going through what we went through before we came to live with Grandma Ruth. What did you go through? Destiny asked quietly. Marcus and Isabella exchanged a look, and I could see them deciding how much to share. The usual, Marcus said finally. Patricia's boyfriends who weren't safe to be around, moving all the time, never having enough food or knowing if she would come home at night. The fear that she would disappear and leave us alone. She did disappear, Isabella added, for months at a time sometimes. Marcus took care of me the way Destiny took care of Jamal. I felt a stab of recognition and grief. Patricia's pattern of abandonment hadn't started with me or even with Destiny and Jamal. It had been going on for decades, leaving a trail of damaged children in her wake. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry you went through that. I'm sorry you went through it too, Marcus said. And I'm sorry we weren't there to help. But we're here now, Ruth said firmly. All of us, and we're going to make sure that little boy gets the family he deserves. That night, as Destiny and I settled into the guest room Ruth had prepared for us, I felt something I had never experienced before. I felt like I belonged somewhere. Maya, Destiny said from the twin bed across from mine. Is this what having a real family feels like? I think so, I said. I think this is what it's supposed to feel like. The next morning, Ruth took us to meet with the lawyer she had found, a family law specialist who had experience with complex custody cases involving abandonment and parental unfitness. This case is actually more straightforward than you might think, the lawyer explained. With Patricia's arrest and the documented history of abandonment, we should be able to get emergency custody relatively quickly. The bigger challenge will be proving that Destiny has adequate support to raise an 8-year-old. She has family support, Ruth said firmly. She has a stable home base here, financial backing, and siblings who are committed to helping. And what about long-term? Where would the child live primarily? Destiny and I had talked about this during the drive to Ohio. The original plan had been for her to get her own apartment near me, but now everything was more complicated. I've been thinking, Ruth said carefully. What if Destiny and Jamal stayed here at least initially? This house is plenty big, and it would give Jamal stability while Destiny finishes growing up and figures out her next steps. Ruth, we couldn't ask that of you, I said. You're not asking. I'm offering. Honey, I raised 2 children after my own child. Raising years were supposed to be over. I can certainly help raise 2 more. But Destiny needs to be the legal guardian. Jamal needs to be with his sister, not another substitute parent. Of course. But there's no reason she can't have help. Family is supposed to help each other. Over the next week, we put together a custody case that was unlike anything I had seen in my professional life. Instead of one person trying to prove they could handle raising a child alone, we presented the court with an entire family support system. Marcus and Isabella both wrote letters describing their eagerness to be involved in their brother's life. David wrote about his commitment to being part of Jamal's extended family. Ruth provided financial documentation showing she could support the household. I provided my professional credentials and character references. Most importantly, we had photos and videos from multiple visits with Jamal, showing him relaxed and happy in ways his foster parents said they had never seen before. He keeps asking when he can come home with me, Destiny told the social worker during one of the evaluation visits. He's never called anywhere home before. The court hearing was scheduled for the following month. In the meantime, Jamal came to stay with us at Ruth's house for a long weekend visit. Watching him run around Ruth's big backyard, playing catch with Marcus and helping Isabella plant flowers, I saw glimpses of the carefree child he could be when he felt safe and loved. Destiny, he said on Sunday night when it was time for him to go back to his foster placement, when I live with you for real, will Maya and Marcus and Isabella and Grandma, Ruth all be there too. They'll all be part of our family, she promised him. Not all in the same house, but all in your life. Good, he said seriously. I like having a big family. That night, as I was packing to return home, Ruth pulled me aside. Maya, I want you to know something. I'm proud of the woman you've become. Despite everything Patricia put you through, despite not having family support when you needed it most, you turned into someone who fights for people who can't fight for themselves. That's not an accident. That's character. I had help along the way, I said, thinking of Grace and David and the therapists and foster parents who had shown me kindness. But you chose to accept that help. You chose to heal instead of staying angry. You chose to break the cycle instead of repeating it. As we drove back to my city the next day, I realized that Ruth was right. I had made choices to go to therapy, to build healthy relationships, to create a stable life, to fight for my siblings when they needed me. Patricia had made different choices to run from problems, to prioritize her own needs, to abandon her children when parenting got difficult. I was finally understanding that I wasn't responsible for Patricia's choices, but I was responsible for my own. And I chose family. I chose love. I chose to be the person I had needed when I was Jamal's age. The custody hearing was still 2 weeks away, but I already knew we were going to win. Not just because we had a strong legal case, but because we had something Patricia had never been able to give any of her children. We had a real family. The morning of the custody hearing, I woke up at Ruth's house to the sound of pancakes sizzling on the griddle and quiet voices in the kitchen. It was 6 a.m., but the whole family was already awake, moving around each other with the kind of comfortable choreography that comes from years of shared mornings. Destiny was sitting at the kitchen table, reviewing her testimony notes for the 100th time. Her hands were shaking slightly, and I could see the dark circles under her eyes from a sleepless night. You're going to do great, I told her, sitting down beside her with the cup of coffee Ruth handed me. What if I mess up? What if I say something wrong and they decide I'm not fit to take care of him? You won't mess up, Isabella said, joining us at the table. And even if you stumble over your words, they'll be able to see how much you love him. That's what matters most. Marcus came downstairs in his suit, looking every inch the respectable teacher and family man he had become. The car's loaded with all the documentation. Mom's riding with us, and David is meeting us at the courthouse. Ruth set a plate of pancakes in front of each of us, but none of us had much appetite. The weight of the day ahead hung over all of us. Before we go, Ruth said, sitting down at the table with her own coffee, I want you all to remember something. Whatever happens today, we are a family. We found each other, we chose each other, and we're going to stick together. That little boy is going to have a loving family no matter what. The courthouse in Springfield was busier than I had expected for a Tuesday morning. Families with children, lawyers in expensive suits, social workers carrying thick case files, all the moving pieces of a system designed to protect children, but often feeling more like a machine that processed them. Our lawyer, Ms. Rodriguez, no relation to the police detective, met us in the lobby. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and the kind of quiet confidence that came from winning difficult cases. Patricia's attorney requested permission for her to appear via video link from the detention center. She told us as we walked toward the courtroom. The judge granted it, so she'll be able to testify if she chooses to. My stomach clenched. Even from jail, Patricia was going to try to interfere with what was best for her son. What might she say? Destiny asked. Probably that she's been wrongfully imprisoned, that she's a victim of circumstances, that she loves her children and wants what's best for them. The usual manipulation tactics. Will it work? Not with Judge Morrison. She's seen it all before, and she bases her decisions on evidence and the best interests of the child, not emotional appeals from parents who have already proven they can't prioritize their children's needs. The courtroom was smaller than I had expected, with wooden benches that reminded me of a church and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly sickly. Jamal's current foster parents, the Hendersons, were already seated in the front row. Mrs. Henderson gave us an encouraging smile and a small wave. David was waiting for us, looking handsome and solid in his navy suit. He squeezed my hand as I sat down next to him. "How are you holding up?" he whispered. "Ask me in a few hours." Judge Morrison was a woman in her 50s with graying brown hair, and the kind of neutral expression that gave away nothing about what she might be thinking. She reviewed the case files in silence while the court reporter set up her equipment and the bailiff called the session to order. "This is a hearing regarding the custody of Jamal Williams, age 8, currently in foster care," Judge Morrison began. "The petitioner, Destiny Williams, age 19, is seeking legal guardianship of her minor brother. The child's mother, Patricia Johnson, is currently incarcerated on multiple felony charges related to fraud and identity theft." She looked up from her files and surveyed the courtroom. "I see we have quite a few interested parties here today. Before we begin with testimony, I'd like to speak with the child." My heart started racing. We had prepared Jamal for the possibility that he might need to talk to the judge, but he was still just 8 years old. What if he got scared? What if he said something that hurt Destiny's case? The bailiff brought Jamal in through a side door. He was wearing the new clothes Ruth had bought for him, khaki pants and a blue button-down shirt that made him look older and more serious than his years. But his eyes immediately searched the courtroom until they found Destiny, and his whole face relaxed when he saw her. "Hello, Jamal," Judge Morrison said, her voice becoming warmer than it had been during the formal proceedings. "Do you know why you're here today?" "Yes, ma'am. To talk about where I'm going to live." "That's right. And do you understand that I'm the person who gets to decide what's best for you?" "Destiny says you're like the principal of the courthouse, and you make sure kids are safe and happy." I saw Judge Morrison's mouth twitch in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "That's a pretty good way to put it. Now, Jamal, you've been living with Mr. and Mrs. Henderson for several months. How has that been?" "They're nice people," Jamal said carefully. "They take good care of me and make sure I have everything I need." "But what?" "But they're not my family. Mrs. Henderson says I can't call her grandma, because that might make me confused, and Mr. Henderson falls asleep in his chair after dinner, so we don't really play games or anything." "I see. And what about your sister Destiny? How do you feel about her?" Jamal's whole demeanor changed, becoming more animated and confident. "Destiny is the best sister ever. She taught me how to tie my shoes and how to read chapter books. When Mom would go away, Destiny would make me pancakes for breakfast and help me with my homework. She never forgot to pick me up from school, not even once." "And you'd like to live with her again?" "Yes, Mum. More than anything." "What about your mother, Jamal? Do you miss her?" This was the question I had been dreading. Jamal was quiet for a long moment, his young face serious as he considered his answer. "I miss the mom I thought she was going to be," he said finally. "But I don't miss being scared all the time or not knowing if she was coming home." The courtroom was completely silent. Even Judge Morrison looked affected by the wisdom in that simple statement. "One more question, Jamal. I see you have a lot of family members here today who you didn't know about before. How do you feel about that?" "It's the best thing ever," he said, his face lighting up. "I always wanted a big family. Maya is teaching me about her work helping kids, and Marcus is going to teach me how to play baseball, and Isabella showed me how to take care of plants. And Grandma Ruth makes the best cookies in the whole world." "Thank you, Jamal. You can go sit with your family now." As Jamal made his way back to sit between Destiny and me, I saw tears in several people's eyes, including Mrs. Henderson's. The next hour was filled with testimony from social workers, character witnesses, and family members. Marcus spoke about his and Isabella's experience being raised by Ruth after Patricia abandoned them. Isabella testified about her professional experience working with children and her commitment to being involved in Jamal's life. David testified about his relationship with me and his willingness to be part of Jamal's extended family. Ruth spoke about her financial ability to support the household and her experience raising children. But it was Destiny's testimony that brought me to tears. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady despite her nervousness, "I know I'm young, and I know I don't have a lot of money or a fancy education. But I've been taking care of Jamal since he was 3 years old. I know that he has bad dreams about monsters under his bed, and the only thing that helps is reading him stories about brave kids who save the day. I know that he's lactose intolerant, but he loves ice cream, so we have to buy the special kind. I know that he's scared of thunderstorms but loves the rain when it's sunny." She paused to wipe away tears. I know that he draws pictures of our family, not just me and him, but Maya and Marcus and Isabella and Grandma Ruth and David too. He draws us all together in a big house with a dog and a cat and a garden. He's never had that before, a real family that chooses to stay together. Your Honor, I can't promise I'll be perfect. But I can promise that I will never, ever abandon him the way our mother did. I can promise that he'll always come first, always be safe, always know he's loved. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Then came the moment we had all been dreading. The video screen at the front of the courtroom flickered to life, and Patricia's face appeared, pale and drawn but wearing the same manipulative expression I remembered so well. Your Honor, Patricia began, I want to thank you for allowing me to participate in these proceedings. I love my son more than anything in this world, and I only want what's best for him. I felt destiny tense beside me. I made mistakes, Patricia continued. I got involved with the wrong people, trusted the wrong man, made choices that I regret deeply. But I never stopped loving my children. I left Jamal with Destiny because I thought I was protecting him from dangerous people. I thought she would take good care of him until I could come back. Ms. Johnson. Judge Morrison interrupted. You are facing multiple felony charges that could result in significant prison time. Even if you were released today, how would you propose to care for an 8-year-old child? I believe the charges against me will be resolved favorably. I was a victim of manipulation myself, but even if they aren't, I don't think my teenage daughter is equipped to raise a child. She has no stable income, no permanent housing, no education beyond high school. And what would you prefer to see happen to your son? I think he should be placed with a stable, middle-class family who can provide for him properly. People who can afford to send him to college, give him opportunities I never could. The audacity of it took my breath away. Patricia was advocating for her son to be placed with strangers rather than acknowledging the loving family that was sitting right in front of the judge. Ms. Johnson. Judge Morrison said, her voice becoming colder, are you aware that your daughter has the support of an extensive family network, including financial backing from the children's grandmother? I'm aware that my former mother-in-law has contacted my children, yes. But Your Honor, these people are strangers to Jamal. He doesn't know them. The court has heard testimony that the child has had multiple visits with these family members and has expressed happiness and comfort in their presence. Are you suggesting that biological family connections are less important than placement with strangers? Patricia's mask was starting to slip. I could see the anger building behind her eyes. Your Honor, I just think, Ms. Johnson, let me be very clear. You abandoned this child 6 months ago. You left him in the care of his teenage sister with no support, no resources, and no plan for his well-being. Your daughter has been fighting to maintain her family, while you have been involved in criminal activities that targeted vulnerable elderly people. The court is not interested in your preferences for your son's placement when you have repeatedly demonstrated that you prioritize your own interests over his well-being. The video screen went black. Patricia's lawyer had clearly advised her to stop talking before she made things worse for herself. Judge Morrison called for a brief recess to review all the testimony and evidence. We waited in the hallway, Jamal coloring in a book on Destiny's lap while the adults tried to pretend we weren't all nervous wrecks. She looked desperate, David observed quietly. She is desperate, I said, but not for Jamal. She's desperate to maintain control, to have the last word, to make sure we don't get what we want even if it hurts her son. When we were called back into the courtroom, Judge Morrison had made her decision. After reviewing all testimony and evidence, and after considering the best interests of the child, the court grants custody of Jamal Williams to his sister, Destiny Williams, effective immediately. Destiny burst into tears. Jamal jumped up from his seat and ran to hug her. I felt relief flood through me so powerfully that I nearly collapsed, but Judge Morrison wasn't finished. However, this custody arrangement comes with conditions. Ms. Williams, you will be required to maintain stable housing for a minimum of 6 months. You will participate in parenting classes and financial planning workshops. You will ensure that Jamal receives regular medical and dental care and maintains his education. Most importantly, you will maintain regular contact with this extensive family support network that has committed to helping you. Yes, Your Honor. Absolutely. Furthermore, I am granting visitation rights to the maternal grandmother, Ruth Johnson, and establishing a college fund for the child that can be managed by the family until he reaches the age of majority. She looked directly at Jamal. Young man, do you understand what this means? I get to go home with Destiny. and you get to go home with Destiny. And you get to be part of a family that will always fight for you. As we left the courthouse that day, Jamal holding Destiny's hand on one side and mine on the other, I realized that we had done more than win a custody case. We had broken a cycle that had been destroying children for decades. We had chosen love over fear, family over abandonment, healing over repeating the same painful patterns. Patricia had tried one last time to hurt us, to maintain control even from behind bars. But for the first time in any of our lives she had failed. We were finally truly going home.